Namo tasse bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tasse bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tasse bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. So, yesterday we have explained the preliminary for understanding the 6th chapter. We have explained that this book is organized according to the three sections. The first explain the Yogācāra. The second explain the yoga contact, and the third explain the result of the correct yoga. And we have also explained that the Yogācāra Bhumi Shastra is based on this explanation. For the yogi, the Gochara, the Ashraya, we can say, because the mind is the base of all our experience. There is no experience without the mind. So in a non-dualistic tradition, there is only one Gochara, the one Ashraya of yoga, and that is the mind. By not understanding the mind, we are bound. By understanding the mind, we are liberated. Now, because we don't understand the nature of the mind, we are suffering. And because we suffer, we need Buddhism. And we need Buddhism to do the correct conduct. When we do the correct conduct, then we can get the correct result, which is the end of suffering. Now, in the non-dualistic tradition, the end of suffering is not an individual nirvana, but the penetration of the mind means the perfect realization. This perfect realization is called the Dharma Kaya. The disciples, they attain the Vimuktikaya. Buddha has also Vimuktikaya. The Shila Vimuktikaya, Samadhi Vimuktikaya, Pragya Vimuktikaya, Jnana Vimuktikaya, and Vimuktikaya. The 5 Upadana Khandhas become the 5 Vimuktikayas. This is what the Arahat experiences, and this is what also the perfect Sambuddha also experiences. He has also Vimuktikaya. But the ordinary Arahat does not have Dharmakaya. We have to practice non-dualistic meditation to penetrate the Dharmakaya. And this book is precisely the base for our understanding how to penetrate the non-dualistic shamatha and vipassana. When we penetrate the non-dualistic shamatha and vipassana, we can practice the paramis, which is the practice of the bodhisattvas, in a correct way, so that they can be completed. It is also a process as any other practice. There are paramis, there are upaparamis, and there are paramaparamis, same as in Pali tradition. When you have completed the paramis, you can attain the Dharmakaya. We have explained this concept is not strange to the Theravada tradition. One who sees the Buddha sees the Dharma, but the commentaries do not explain. We have to go to Mahayana commentaries to understand what is actually meant. And the base for the Alaya tradition, yesterday we have explained in the Mahayana, we have two presentations of the dependent origination. The presentation of the dependent origination on the base of the Alaya Vidyana, which is impermanent, and on the Tathagata Garbha, which is permanent. And the realization of the Tathagata Garbha means, as the Mahayana Sutras explain, it means a realization of the non-permanence of the bliss and of the true self, which is not Atma, but Paramatma. You will find this in the Mahayana Sutras, like the Mahayana Parinirvana Sutra. Now, this sixth chapter we are going to talk about in the coming 11 days. Starting with today, we are analyzing the sixth chapter. We have the preliminary, which is very important. We have explained what is Nitartha as opposed to Neyartha. For this tradition, the Nitartha is understanding the selflessness of the three levels of reality. Not just two levels, three levels. In other traditions, you have two levels of reality, Sambhati and Paramartha. Here you have three levels. And this is the Sandhi Bhasha of the Buddha. So first you have to understand these three levels, and then you have to understand their asvabhava, their non-self nature. This is a way how to get access to the non-dualistic meditation, which is based on the contemplation of the suchness. Suchness is also presented as the swabhava of all. All phenomena have no swabhava, have no own nature, but their own nature is actually the suchness, tathata. And the Tathagata is the one who goes Tathagata and comes Tathagata in suchness. And this is why he has the Dharma body, because he comes and goes in suchness. So this sixth chapter, which we're going to discuss, and which is very important for understanding non-dualistic meditation, is divided also in three parts. I will try to use my intelligence, because there are so many questions and so many answers. We have to summarize the most important. So the first part explains the upaya kaushalyam, the skillful means for understanding the non-dualistic meditation. If you don't have skillful means, you will not understand the non-dualistic meditation. So this is very important. Without the skillful means, you cannot enter the non-dualistic meditation. Then these are first 18 questions. Today we shall deal with them. Tomorrow also, and we will try in the first few days to deal with the first 18 questions, which explain this upaya kaushalyam, how to understand the non-dualistic meditation. The second is the alambana of the non-dualistic meditation. the second part. So it will explain what is Dharma and what is the meaning of the Dharma from the point of view of non-dualistic meditation. And actually, it is roughly explained already in the first part, explaining the Upaya Kaushalya, but in detail in the second part. So these parts, they are interconnected, of course, because as everything we experience is a process. So the non-dualistic meditation is also a process in which you deepen your knowledge. When you deepen your knowledge, then you get the effect of the non-dualistic meditation. And that is the what the third part of the 6th chapter is dealing with. When you get the effect of the non-dualistic meditation, you can practice the paramis correctly and attain the Dharmakaya. Because this is very important to understand. If you perfect yourself in one parami, the other paramis will also naturally be fulfilled. This is same in the Jataka tradition. When the Buddha perfected himself in the Dana parami, the Sankara Jataka, then he attained the next life. He became the Buddha. So when we abandon everything, already the others, the paramis are implied. This is also what the Bodhicharya Avatara tells and other scriptures connected with explanation of the Bodhisattva path. So now we are dealing with the first part, explaining the Upaya Kaushalyam to understand non-dualistic meditation. As you may know, in case of the Arahat, first you have to understand the Jnata Pariññā. You have to understand the objects of wisdom. Only then that means the 5 skandha, the dependent origination, impermanence, and so on, then you can practice correctly vipassana. So here similarly, you have to understand this Upaya Kaushalyam and the objects of the non-dualistic meditation to practice correctly and get the correct result, which is the understanding of the Dharmakaya, which is non-dualistic. So yesterday we started with the first question. Today we continue with the first question. I have today the English translation, which says the first question is, then the enlightened being Maitreya said to the Buddha, based on what, abiding in what, do enlightened beings practice, that means bodhisattvas, practice tranquility and observation, that is explaining shamatha and vipassana. He has his own language, which is sometimes difficult to understand because it translates from Chinese. And so it just says shamatha and vipassana. So how does one practice correctly shamatha? How does a bodhisattva practice and abides in shamatha and vipassana from the point of view of Mahayana? Mahayana means the path leading to the Anuttara Samyak Sambodhana, to the omniscience in all aspects. And that path is based on penetrating the deep meaning of tathata. And the Buddha replied, you should know that the basis, the ashraya, the E, if there are any Chinese students, and the abode, the ju, the vihara, so ashraya and vihara of the practice of shamatha and vipassana in the great vehicle in Mahayana are, that is difficult to translate. I am not quite happy with this translation, is the provisional setups of the ways of enlightening beings and sustaining the determination for suffering perfect enlightenment. I would translate like this according to the Chinese. It means the understanding that the dharmas are not really established, are apratishtita. As you may know, this is very important if you want to understand Mahayana. Normally, the end of the practice for the aseka is the saasesa nibbana and nirasesa nibbana, the nirvana with rest and the nirvana without rest. This is how also Asanga explains in Yogācāra Bhūmishastra. But in the Transcendental Wisdom Sutras, you have 4 kinds of nirvana. Very important to understand, not just 2. A bodhisattva has to understand the 4 kinds of nirvana. And this is connected with very important with understanding our text. So we have apratishtita nirvana, the non-established nirvana. And we have the practice of the non-established nirvana. The one, once you have attained the non-established nirvana, what do? As the Diamond Sutra teaches, which is one of the most popular sutras in the Chinese tradition, which even the lay people learn by heart, like Satipatthana Sutta in the Southern Buddhism. It is said you give rise to the mind without letting it dwell anywhere. Wu Su Ju or Shen Qi Xin. You give rise to the mind, not letting it dwell anywhere. This is a way how to attain the non-dualistic understanding of the practice. This is very important for our text. So if you want to understand the non-dualistic meditation, you have to understand that the Dharma, and later we will see that the Dharma means names, sentences, syllables, generalization and particularization, 5 aspects, is not established. Whatever concepts they are not established in reality. That's why we were talking about the 3 realities. The reality, we are not clinging to reality because we don't know reality as it is. We are clinging to the concepts we make of the reality. And these concepts clinging to the reality, they connected with our karma, they connected with our past. Because we have different karma, we have different concepts, so we cling to different things, because once you pay attention, you differentiate, already the past comes in. And this past are the seeds of our previous experiences, which makes us cling to this and that object because this and that past experience. So the reality established by concepts is not established, or is in the Chinese is falsely established. Jia Anli. It is a Bhante. It is a confusion. If you establish something in reality and you are clinging to this concept, because we cling to concepts, not to reality, just as the Sutta Nipata explains, Yacha loke samutiyo ta na upeti muni. Who is a muni? Who is a realized person? The one who does not appropriate whatever conventions they are in the world. He uses them, but he is not attached to them. Why? Because these concepts, they are not established in reality at all. If we establish them, they are falsely established. Jia Anli. This is if you want to practice non-dualistic meditation, the first thing one has to understand, and this is very important, you should not rely on the vachi vasana, on the perfumation of the mind by language, by concepts, but you should try for direct realization. The abhisamaya. We have explained what the saint sees, what the Muni sees, that is the reality. If we cling to the things, that is not a reality, it is falsely established reality. And falsely established reality is not established. So, because we are hanging to the vachi vasana, we are hanging to the concepts, to the samuti, samvrti. But the samvrti is precisely that which hides the true reality. Yatha bhuta artam samvrinoti, it is samvrti, that which hides the true meaning, that is the conventional truth. So one practicing the Mahayana meditation, the non-dualistic meditation, has to see very clearly that the construction of the world as we have it comes from the vasanas in our mind, these samskaras which we collect, the samskara ayuhana is the karma, which perfumes our mind, and according to that we cling to the reality which is falsely established, has never been established. To understand that is to practice the non-dualistic meditation. So the reality to which we cling, which is parikalpita, the reality to which we cling is parikalpita, it is fabricated all around. And it hides the true nature of parikalpita, true nature of paratantra, of the dependent origination. what we experience is dependent origination. No matter whether we are the Buddhas or non-Buddhas, we experience dependent origination. There is no doubt about it. This is also what the science establishes. But unless you are realized, you are a Buddha, you experience it through concepts, not as it is. And the reality of the dependent origination as we experience it through concepts, I like it, I don't like it, it is beautiful, it is ugly. All this reality has not been born. So you have to understand, as we explained yesterday, that this Paratantra, the relative reality as we experience it, has never come to existence except in our own mind. And so this reality has no svabhava of utpatti, no svabhava of arising. And the paramartha asvabhava, the highest non-essence, non-self-existence, is the parinishpana reality, the perfect reality. And this is the reality, of course, of the suchness. So in this reality, you don't cling to any concept. And in this reality, you just let your mind give rise naturally without dwelling anywhere. Naturally means without thinking, without investigation. If you want to understand Zen meditation, the Tibetan meditation, Dzogchen, and so on, this is the base. When Bodhidharma came to China, the Chinese emperor of the Liang dynasty, the Emperor Wu, received him because he was told there is a famous saint coming from India. And that Emperor Wu of Liang, he was one of the most important emperors in propagating Buddhism in China. Due to his merits, Buddhism could spread in China, in the country which was far removed from the Indian traditions. It was a Confucianist society. Now he told Bodhidharma, I have built so many monasteries, I allowed so many monks to ordain, and I encourage monks to ordain everywhere in my country. What is the merit I have attained? And the Bodhidharma replied very mysteriously, no merit. So this emperor, very astonished, so he asked him, who is standing in front of me? And he replies, I don't know, actually, I don't differentiate. So he is very confused, and then Bodhidharma leaves. And then they tell him that this was great, it was Avalokiteshvara himself talking to him. But it was too late, he disappeared. Anyway, so this is letting mind arise without dwelling. In the mind without dwelling, as Diamond Sutra explained, the greatest merit is no merit, because that merit is within the scope of suchness itself. And the great knowing is no knowing, because that knowing is in the scope of suchness itself. And the greatest attainment is non-attainment, because that attainment is the suchness, which cannot be attained. So this is the base for the non-dualistic philosophy. So this beginning is very important. Then he says, sustaining the determination for suffering perfect enlightenment, for anuttara samyak sambodhi. That means he gives rise to the vows not to attain individual liberation, but to attain the universal liberation. This universal liberation can only belong to that which is universal, and that is the mind. How can you have, even the Buddha could not liberate all beings. But who can liberate all beings? Only the mind. So once you, in Chinese tradition, even before every meal, you repeat the 4 basic vows. You vow to liberate not just yourself, but all beings. You vow to remove all defilements, not just your defilement. You vow to learn all dharmas, not just what you need to get rid of suffering. And you vow to attain the anuttara samyak sambodhi. Every bodhisattva has the vows. And due to these vows, he cannot leave samsara. If he leaves samsara, he will not fulfill his vows. So this is a determination to stay in samsara. Whatever difficulties come, you learn from these difficulties. You don't want to suppress them. You learn from them. This is the Jataka stories on which the path of Bodhisattva is based. So the Bodhisattva does not want to avoid difficulties. He wants to learn from difficulties how to stay in samsara and not to suffer how to stay in samsara due to his compassion and due to his vows, which deepen this compassion, and how to develop wisdom while staying in samsara, not to suffer. So this is very important to understand. This is the base, this is the beginning, so we can come to the second question, which is very important also. And the second question is, Maitreya then asked, the Buddha has said that there are 4 kinds of objects. According to Yogācāra Bhumi Shastra, you search in the Theravada Tripitaka, you search in the Sanskrit Tripitaka, the Agamas, or the Nikayas, you will not find anything about these 4 objects. But fortunately, the Shravaka Bhumi of the Yogācāra Bhumi Shastra quotes Revata Sutra. Nobody can find the Revata Sutra. Impossible to find. But this Revata Sutra teaches, and according to that Yogācāra Bhumi Shastra, Samyukta Abhidharma, and many other treatises explaining the Bodhisattva path in the non-dualistic tradition, also teach these 4 objects. And they are very important for understanding non-dualistic meditation. So what are the 4 objects? One is reflections of thought. This is not I will myself translate, it is much better. The first one that they are called, they are four Yogācāra vastu in Sanskrit. This is difficult to translate. They are all basis for understanding the objects of shamatha and vipassana. The first one is sa vikalpa pratibimba alambana vastu. I translate directly into Sanskrit. Sa vikalpa, it means with differentiation. So you have the pratibimba, reflected image with differentiation as being the alambana vastu, as being the base for object in the understanding of shamatha and vipassana. This is first. As we will see, this object with differentiation is the vipassana object. We will explain later. Then you have the base for the object without differentiation. Nirvikalpa pratibimba alambana gochara vastu. Translating from Sanskrit. So this, as we will learn, this is the object of shamatha. Nirvikalpa alambana gochara vastu. When you practice vipassana, you are differentiating the qualities of the object. When you are practicing shamatha, you are not differentiating the qualities of the object. That is clear. Now, the third is vastu paryanta alambana gochara vastu. Vastu paryanta means, he translates as, the third is totality of the phenomena. That's all right. Totality of the phenomena. I will have to explain. Unless I explain, will not be clear. Totality, when you become enlightened, and I hope it will be soon, what will you realize? According to Yogācāra Bhumi Shastra, according to you also, you will realize yavat bhavikata and yatha bhavikata. Yavat bhavikata means as far as a mind can go. Mind can go no further than that. Mind can go no further than 5 aggregates, 12 bases, 18 elements, dependent origination. This is how far the mind can go. And yatha bhavikata means in the sense of suchness. All these objects appear, but they appear as they are in suchness. If there is no suchness, they cannot appear as they are. So, this is very important to understand. as long as we have not realized, no matter whether you are a Sotapanna or you have practiced the Bodhisattva path, if you have not directly realized the object of liberation, which is not real object, because object is alambana, from the root lam, which means to hang. Object is what you hang your mind on. But the nirvana or suchness you cannot hang your mind on. Therefore, it is a real object. But a real object is no object. The real language of spiritual sciences also is the language of paradoxes. The real, as we will learn, the real Vedana, the real sensation is no sensation. The real perception is no perception. The real thought is no thought. The real attainment is no attainment. The real knowledge is no knowledge. We have to go into the dimension of spirituality, the dimension of mind, in order to understand the non-dualistic meditation. The non-dualistic meditation is the meditation which goes beyond the opposite. All that we experience in the world is based on the opposites. I experience the hardness because my hand is soft and so on. But the spiritual, in the enlightened dimension, these opposites, they lose power. They cannot hold the mind. They cannot make the mind dwell on them. Therefore, the mind goes over them. And that is a paradox. In Theravada tradition, or in the tradition explaining the path of the Arahats, you never talk about this, you never explain this reality or logic of this reality, because you have to experience, you practice impermanence, suffering of impermanence, you turn away from impermanence, then you will experience. But here, you want to stay in samsara. You want to stay in samsara, you have to understand very clearly the nature of the samsara from the very beginning. What you hold, that's why three realities is based on your concept, not on reality. The reality is reality because you cannot hold it. So this is a dialectics of emptiness. You have to be very familiar with the dialectics of emptiness. No wonder the Buddhist logic is based on Yogācāra. To understand that this impermanence is also suchness, but non-impermanence is also suchness. So suchness has the aspect of the impermanent reality, and it has also the aspect of the reality which is beyond impermanence. Both are yavad bhavikata. The impermanence is also, both are yatha bhavikata. Impermanence is also yatha bhavikata. Now, yavad bhavikata explains according to the Abhidharma, the Abhidharma Samuccaya and so on, the Mahayana Abhidharma, is analyzing the Vishesha Lakshana, analyzing the special characteristic of the object. And the Yatha Bhavikata is for analyzing the common characteristic of the object. The common characteristic of the object is also impermanence, suffering of impermanence, selflessness of impermanence, but also that which is beyond impermanence, the emptiness in the higher sense, in the sense of the ultimate reality. So this is very important for understanding non-dualistic meditation. Now, how, if we're talking about these four objects, we have to explain, this is very important. How does all this reality in which we are stuck, according to this concept, as long as you have no realization, you are stuck in your pratibimba. You are stuck in this reflected image. The mind produces these reflected images, and we don't hold to reality, we hold to these reflected images. These reflected images, they are not what we experience through the senses, but it is also not different from what we experience through the senses. So it is called sadrisha, sadrisha bhava. It is similar to that. Suppose you meditate on breath. The real breath means what? Vibration, movement, pushing sensation. But you want to attain samadhi, you don't meditate on this. You meditate on the concept of the breath. That's how you can stabilize your mind. If you only contemplate the vibration, how will you stabilize your mind? So even in vipassana, you have to stabilize your mind to understand the breath. In shamatha also, you have to stabilize your mind to understand the breath. You stabilize your mind on this pratibimba, reflected image. So, to understand non-dualistic meditation, first, there has to be, in order that we hold to something, we hold to objects, we have to, according to this tradition, we have to understand alaya in order to not only go beyond the holding to the atta, to holding to the self, or holding to the Udgala, but also holding to the Dharma, to all phenomena, you should not hold. So the Agama tradition emphasizes not holding to the atta, not holding to the person. This tradition emphasizing not holding to the Dharma, not holding to the phenomenon. All is Dharma. But for us, the Dharma is, we understand through concepts. The concepts are very necessary. If somebody does not explain the five aggregates, we don't know the five aggregates. In the non-dualistic tradition, if you don't explain the full moon, you cannot see the full moon. That is the mind, of course. The nature of the mind. Somebody has to explain, then you will understand, then you will have faith in it, then you can practice. So, first, there has to be this vipaka consciousness. This vipaka consciousness, that is the alaya. from this vipaka consciousness develops the aspect of the subject and the aspect of the object. And the aspect who is witnessing the subject and the object. That is called the Svasamviti Bhaga, which is Alaya, the Darshana Bhaga, the subject aspect, and the Nimitta Bhaga, the what the subject sees aspect. This develops from the mind itself. From which mind? From the Alaya consciousness mind. Alaya consciousness is the karma consciousness. From the karma consciousness comes the avarjana consciousness, which makes you see object, and the khyati consciousness, that which is seen consciousness. So all develops from the consciousness. In a non-dualistic meditation, you find in the scriptures the simile of the snail. The snail has two, what you call it? Two antennas. Antenna. Two antenna. If the snail touches something, these two antennas come out. Yeah. So similarly, if this karmic consciousness touch something, immediately comes the idea of the subject and object as being something separate. And that is called abhuta parikalpa. The non-real fabrication. The subject never exists separate from object. Object never exists separate from subject, but they develop from this karmic consciousness. And when this karmic consciousness touches something, immediately it has the aspect like the two antenna. It has the aspect of the subjective and the objective, and we have the impression that they are separate, right? That is abhuta parikalpa. Now, due to this abhuta parikalpa, then we see the sign of the object as something being separate from the consciousness. The nimitta as being something separate from the consciousness. So the nimitta, because grasping the image is the base for perception. Perception means grasping the image in the mind. If we don't grasp the image in the mind, we have no perception. If we have no perception, we have no differentiation. We have no differentiation. We cannot recognize the object, right? So when we have the nimitta, this nimitta as something separate from the mind, develops from the mind itself. And the third stage of the development is the pratibimba, the reflected image of the mind of this nimitta, like in the mirror. We will come to it later. It is explained very well in this book. So you have three stages of development. First, you have this vipaka consciousness. From that appears the nimitta as something separate from the mind. Then appears, we hold this nimitta, we perceive that image, and we get the mental image. This mental image is not the same as that what we experience with the five senses, but it is also not different from it. So it is called sadrisha, similar to that. So once you have attained the highest reality, what will happen? This worldly reality will not be so real. What is the difference between Arya and non-Arya, Putujana? Putujana means in Pali, Putu means white. Putujana is one who has raga, dvesha, moha, is very white. Arya, because he has seen nirvana, he has seen suchness. In this tradition, they don't differentiate. So he has kleshas, but these kleshas, they are savastu kleshas. The kleshas of the Putujana are avastu klesha, because they have no base. It belongs to me. So I have raga, but it remains a long time. I have dvesha, it remains a long time, because I think they belong to me. So I think, yeah. But now I have attained the highest reality. It's not yeah. It is savastu. It does not belong to me. It just is belong to the past wrong perceptions. So what a relief. So this reality of the world does not appear so real. So once you have attained this knowledge, this third object, you can attain the fourth object, which is translated here. The fourth is practical accomplishment. Well, the fourth is karya nishpati. Karya nishpati means what is to be done has been done, has been fulfilled. So, if you are an arahat, bye-bye samsara. If you are a bodhisattva, so you very clearly perceive the samsara and nirvana actually cannot be separated. They are one suchness. In suchness, you give rise to the mind without any particular attention, without any particular effort. It is the anabhoga manasikara. Spontaneously, you give rise to the mind. That is the non-dualistic meditation. So now you have these four objects, and as long as one is a putujana, as long as one has not realized suchness, one is always caught in clinging to this pratibimba, the reflected images in the mind. And mind, as later explained, is just a mirror. And these images, they are not different from the mirror. So the practice of the non-dualistic meditation, according to the Bodhisattva Bhumi of the Yogācāra Bhumi Shastra, we explain it better now, then it will be easier to summarize the following topics. There are the 5 R. Very wonderful, all are easy to remember. You want to practice non-dualistic meditation, you have to absorb the 5 R. Then you can become the Buddha. No matter whether Shravaka Buddha or the Bodhisattva Buddha, the same process in a way. So what are the 5 R? The first R is called Ashraya. You have to have a base. This is explaining the base. Ashraya, here it means you have to understand the suchness. Then you can understand the non-dualistic meditation. So we come to Yogācāra Bhumi Shastra, you will find the same principles here. In the Mahayana tradition, we have 7 kinds of suchness, which you have to penetrate. The Arahat, or the disciple who does not give, as we have explained, who does not aims for individual realization, separate from the realization together with all beings. He only needs to understand 4 kinds of suchness. He does not need to understand 7 kinds of suchness. 4 kinds of suchness are the 4 noble truths. In this non-dualistic tradition, there are suchness. The truth of suffering is called Anli, that means the established suchness in the world. It is established that there is suffering. Then you have to know the cause of suffering, which is Shiyashin, Mithya Charita, the wrong behavior. Wrong behavior is Tanha. So this is a worldly truth. The worldly truth is you have to understand the suchness of the truth of suffering, and the suchness of the wrong conduct, which is the cause of the established suffering. Established dukkha. Dukkha is not just suffering, it is a state of being non-satisfied. Nobody can find the full satisfaction in the samsaric existence. It's impossible. Then you have the Paramartha aspect. This is the truth of the annihilation of suffering. and the cause of the annihilation of suffering, which is the correct samyak charita, the correct behavior. Correct behavior is a middle path, of course. Correct conduct. So you have the suchness of the wrong conduct and the suchness of the correct conduct. Xie Xing and Zhen Xing. So, if you want to practice a non-dualistic understanding, you have three more kinds of suchness. The first is the suchness of pravriti. The pravriti means time. And in suchness, there is no time. There is no sequence. Whatever we experience in samsaric existence is a sequence. We get born because we are born. The natural sequence will be getting old and dying. No one can avoid this sequence. But the sequence does not exist in suchness. Then you have the suchness of characteristic. Whatever appears has the characteristic of non-self. Not only a person, non-self, but all the phenomena that are characterized by non-self. And in this tradition, you have the Vishesha Tathata, that is the mind Tathata. The suchness is the true nature of the mind. The true nature of the mind is Chitta Matrata. The reality is the mind itself. That is a suchness. In this tradition, that is a suchness. The Arahat, he does not need to realize these three kinds of suchnesses. He does not meditate on them. But if you want to get into non-dualistic meditation, you have to meditate on these three suchnesses. Whatever appears in time does not appear in the ultimate reality. Whatever appears in time has the characteristic of non-self. Whatever appears in time is Chitta Matrata. So now we have covered the first two questions. They are very important. And tomorrow we will continue. We have 20 minutes left. Somebody was already raising hand for questions. So let us go into questions. Any questions? Please make sure you try your best to understand. This is a very deep philosophy, and we have to think about it. We have to contemplate it, and we have to absorb it step by step. For that, you have to develop interest. All I can do for you is to let your interest grow. I can't do more than that. Okay, what was the question? Okay. Wonderful. Okay. Any no question?
My question is clarify this practical and things like that.
Yeah. Practical accomplishment?
Yeah.
Well, the practical accomplishment in Karya Nishpati. Whatever is to be done has been completed. Nishpati is a completion. So you have realized everything that is needed. Also, in the sense of the path, you have realized all the dhyanas and samapatis. They are also, if you have realized them, you are accomplished in them. You have also accomplished the training and the understanding of the suchness. So you are accomplished in the equipment of virtue or the sambhara. It belongs to it also the meditation, the shamatha, the samapatis, and so on. And also in wisdom. If you are accomplished in them completely, then you can attain, it means you can attain ashraya paravriti. Your mind makes a revolution from clinging to no clinging. So, because the mind which has abode in the world, the alaya, which is also interpreted as adana, this is a mind which abides in the world. Now you have ashraya paravriti, you have made a revolution in the mind, so your mind does not abide in the world. So you are free. Your base ashraya has been turned upside down. So you experience the freedom of liberation. In this tradition, it is called ashraya paravriti. Ashraya, there is no other base than the mind itself. Everything develops from the mind. And this mind has made a revolution. So you are beyond clinging to the world. You have transcended the world. So you are gatte, para sangatte, bodhisvaha. So this is ashraya paravriti. This is karya nishpati. We have done what is to be done. Completed. No other question? Supriya.
Bhante, you mentioned a couple of times non-dualistic practice of samatha and vipassana. Some of us here are practitioners of the Theravada tradition of vipassana, and this is not a common, and this is not an expression we encounter. So, do you explain a little bit what the difference is, and because also it seems that the non-dualistic realization is also built into the process from how you're describing it. So
Actually, from this tradition, there is no contradiction. All Buddhist traditions, they attain the suchness. The nirvana is the suchness. And the nirvana, this understanding of the suchness is not complete as long as you believe in individual liberation. So this ashraya paravriti is not perfected. But it is not like the Lotus Sutra, that there is only one vehicle, the Buddha vehicle. This tradition of alayas, it believes the three vehicles, they are true. This is a difference. Most of the Mahayana traditions believe that like the Lotus Sutra, that the vehicle of the disciples is only skillful means to realize finally the great liberation, which is together with all beings without differentiation. But here, actually, it is based, all the Mahayana is based on the Transcendental Wisdom Sutras. I have explained Transcendental Wisdom Sutra, explained that Nirvana is a natural state. The mind is not established from the very beginning anyway. This is the true nature of the mind. We ourselves have established it due to our bad habits. That's why you have the bad conduct, tatata. And due to bad conduct, tatata, we have the tatata of suffering, which establishes us in the world. Because we are established in the world, we have the tatata of suffering. And this tatata of suffering has a cause, and it is the tatata of the wrong conduct based on grasping. This is nothing new. The same in Theravada. The Buddha explains in Theravada also the Anya Labu Upanisa, Anya Nibbana Gamini, Etat Yatha Bhutam Nyatva Savako Hoti Buddhasa. Dhammapada. There is another way to Nirvana, there is another way to personal gain. We all, to live in the world, we have to think about personal gain. The Bodhisattva also has to think about the personal gain, but he sees it as completely non-real. So he understands completely that this world is a dream. So he learns slowly. It's as more demanding due to wisdom not to suffer, and due to compassion to stay in the world. He has nowhere to go because, as Nagarjuna teaches, there cannot be the relation of sameness, and there cannot be a relation of difference between Nirvana and Samsara. Whatever is the scope of Samsara is the scope of Nirvana, whatever is the scope of Nirvana must be the scope of Nirvana. But they are not the same, but also not the different. But as long as there is the apeksha, the relationship, it cannot be the highest reality. Because in the highest reality, all the relations become equal. So then you have the suchness, the middle path is also the suchness of the right conduct, and the suchness of the right conduct, which is neither existence nor non-existence, neither one nor many, neither arising nor annihilated. This is how the Transcendental Wisdom Sutra explain our experience in the world. So on the base of this, you have the suchness of the correct conduct, which is beyond the opposites, the middle path. And the result of the middle path is this suchness of purity, which is a purity of the mind, which is without clinging. Okay.
There are one or two questions from the online participants.
Okay.
So Nikasi, can you ask your question?
Yes, can you hear me, Bhante?
Yes, we can hear you. You can hear clearly, Nikasi?
Yes. Oh, okay. Thank you for the class. I will need to listen again. There are a lot of information, but I have a question in regarding to the first object. the differentiated image, because it seems that I understand the second object, non-differentiated image, like for example, Mimita or Panyati or something like that. The third object also easy to understand, 5 khandhas or 12 ayatanas, 18 dhatus, and the fourth, the Nibbana suchness. But the first one, differentiate image.
It comes later. You have some patience. It will be explained.
Okay.
So please be patient. You cannot understand this. Then I have explained this 5A, but I have only come to the first A. We will start the next lesson.
Okay.
Explanation of the 5A. So in time only A. Next time we will
Okay,
Okay.
thank you. Yes.
So is a process. So the first process, you have to have a base, and the base is the everything we experience is in the mind. It is a suchness in this tradition. And the okay, so
Bhante, one more question, please. Kashina?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. So, hello, Bhante. Happy to see you. I don't know you can hear me or not.
who is speaking?
Kalsan Kashi, he is our Tibetan teacher.
Yeah, last time we were,
Yes. So I have many questions, but I try to make it small. So as a practitioner, when you practice impermanence and selflessness, suppose you are practicing Yogācāra philosophy, and also you try to practice something from Madhyamaka philosophy, and because of your trying to take something from here and there, is there any difference practicing impermanence? For example, if two people are practicing, one is practicing only Yogācāra philosophy, and one is practicing from both sides. So is there any influence according to practicing impermanence because of your you are having an idea from Madhyamaka school? So did you get my question?
Yes, I got your question, but in the Chinese tradition, this division between Yogācāra and Madhyamika is not so clear. They don't want to define it so clearly. Zen has no clear difference between Yogācāra and Madhyamika. Finally, as you being the student of the Maitreya, 5 books of Maitreya, in the Maitreya himself, like Abhisamaya Alankara, the difference between Yogācāra and Madhyamika is actually more or less becomes not important at all. So Yogācāra is very important for the practice, and Madhyamika is very important for the correct view. And Madhyamika does not explain the steps of the practice. For this, you have to go to Yogācāra. And the theories behind the practice, they are explained in Yogācāra, not in Madhyamika. So both are very important, and there is no reason to separate them strictly. If we want to understand the non-dualistic meditation, we will have to understand both, the Yogācāra and the Madhyamika. And I don't see the need for emphasizing the difference between them. They are complementary. Eventually, if the mind exists or not exists, it's not, as far as the practice is concerned, it's not so important, because finally alaya is also explained as a means for realizing the selflessness not only of the self, but of all the phenomena. As a means for realizing the selflessness of the phenomena, it is a perfect means. Buddhism has not created any better means to realize selflessness of phenomena than Yogācāra. In the samatha and vipassana step-by-step meditation. You agree?
Kashi? Bhante is asking if you agree.
Yes. So we will discuss later. I hope I can join all your lectures. So
Okay.
thank you.
So remember, Yogācāra, same like Madhyamika, is just a means. We cannot, nobody can explain the suchness, but we can only explain the means for
philosophical point of view. When you agree that the mind is real, mind is not dependently arising, not pratitya samutpada, then mind seems real and it is independent. Then the object is dependent origination, then subject is independent. So then philosophically, it is difficult to accept. But as you said, as a practitioner, of course, we can learn from everybody.
Not only we can learn from everybody, you have to learn from Yogācāra to understand the samatha and vipassana step-by-step realization. It is very important. And nobody in this tradition of Yogācāra says who is reasonable. Nowhere in the books of the Maitreya it is said that the real existence of the mind is only skillful means for understanding the reality. It does not mean that it really exists. It is not explained like that. It is only skillful means. Maitreya explained this very clearly. Yogācāra is only skillful means, not absolute as such. The absolute as such, you cannot explain. This is same in Madhyamika, that is the same in Yogācāra. That is why we are reading this chapter. It also makes it very clear. Okay? Some other time we will discuss. So
Sure. Thank you very much.
Let us now do the punya parinama, and we are done for today. Eta vata chame sampatam punya sampatam sabbe deva anumodantu sabba sampati siddhi. Eta vata chame sampatam punya sampatam sabbe bhuta anumodantu sabba sampati siddhi. Eta vata chame sampatam punya sampatam sabbe satta anumodantu sabba sampati siddhi. Yeni Tsikung Puti water mutual sun, may the merit of this practice spread to all beings so that we attain the state of divine. So that will be the end for today.